Heavy is the head that wears the crown. History's most successful monarchs ruled with a mix of responsibility and nobility, treating their status as both a blessing and a curse. And then there's this guy, the son and successor of Queen Victoria, known for her devotion to her husband Albert and the stereotype of rigidity associated with her time. King Edward VII might be the last person you'd expect to get into all sorts of trouble, but Bertie was pretty good at it. From those with Winston Churchill's father to an affair that may have killed his own father, no debauchery was so debauched. So today, we're diving into the bizarre history of King Edward VII, the deathbag king who imploded his reign. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to Memory Lane channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other mad monarchs you would like to hear about. Okay, are you ready for Eddie? The future king was a ladies' man from a young age, so much so that his parents sent him to the army when he was 19. They had hoped to knock some sense into their wild son, who could not seem to focus on his studies. But then, Bertie's fellow soldiers snuck actress Nellie Clifton into his quarters. His father had something to say about it. An angry Prince Albert wrote to his son, "I knew that you were thoughtless and weak, but I could not think you depraved." You know, typical dad stuff. When Albert died of typhoid fever, only a few weeks later, a distressed Queen Victoria blamed her son, saying that Albert died of a broken heart caused by Bertie's behavior. If the story was about anyone else, maybe the young Bertie would have straightened up and flown right. That's not what happened. His father's passing only made his wild tendencies more extreme. Clifton was not Bertie's only scandalous affair. Besides the countless French brutels he patronized, Bertie's conquest included actresses, pin-up girls, socialites, and even aristocrats. One affair resulted in Bertie's being subpoenaed for the divorce of Sir Charles Mordaunt's 10th Barons, after the Baron's wife confessed to a trance with the then prince. Having your business aired out in a court like that, but to find indeed. King Edward VII of England, also known as Bertie, was the son of Queen Victoria and the most epic playboy of his time. He was a regular Casanova, seducing women left and right. He even had special furniture made just so he could rendezvous with numerous women at once. Today, we call those waterbeds. Of course, ultimate playboys have the best and most unique ways to engage in their particular depraved behaviors, and the future King Edward VII was no exception. Bertie had his own room at the famous Parisian hotel Les Chebenies. In his room sat a chopper bathtub decorated with creatures that were half swan and half woman, like a swamp center. You get it? Bertie was known to enjoy bathing in the tub after filling it with champagne and women. We do not envy the person who was required by law to clean that bathtub, but we can't deny that the king was creative. In addition to the swamp tub, Bertie had another piece of interesting furniture, a love set, no, literally, a diamond or love chair. This chair was commissioned directly by Bertie and was made to both accommodate his weight, which was so high later in life that his wife eventually nicknamed him Tom Tom, and his desire to entertain several women at once without putting in much effort. Nothing is more of a turn on than saying, "I'm not going to try at all, girl." The chair was designed with 2 bucket seats and 2 sets of bronze syrups. The setup has confounded modern researchers, to say the least. History professor Richard Thompson said, "Goodness knows how it was to be used. One looks at it and raises one's eyebrow." We could probably venture a few guesses, professor. It might be hard to believe that a man with so many lovers would stick to one woman for 2 decades, but Alice Capel was Bertie's main mistress for a solid 20 years, the affair only ending with Bertie's death. Capel was quite popular with the public, and some claimed she made the king more pleasant to be around. She was so important that she was even let in to see Bertie on his deathbed, the only mistress of the king allowed to do so. However, author Catherine Arnold claimed that this was not out of the goodness of Bertie's wife's heart, but rather because Capel was banging on the gate of Buckingham Palace, making a scene and demanding to be let in. Given that all the primary sources have shuffled off to the great Soirée d'Amour in the sky, we'll never know for sure which version is true. Capel's legacy lives on. She's the great-grandmother of Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, second wife to Prince Charles, who was Bertie's great-grandson. Camilla, notably, was the woman for some time before Princess Diana and Charles divorced. Apparently, royal scandals are genetic. Bertie really got around in France, bedding the famous actress, aristocrat, and escort in Paris, frequently in his favored Othello with the famous champagne top. One of the nicknames he earned as he made his way through the arrondissement was Edward the Caresser. Catchy, right? Bertie's reputation was so well known that when he toured Europe, women would proposition him. Bertie always preferred grandiose Parisian brothel, where he could bathe in champagne and gaze upon his own coat of arms. We decorated the expensive room he acquired in Les Chebenies. It's a bit like having a portrait of yourself hanging over the bed. With many high-risk affairs, Bertie was bound to get in trouble for at least one of them. Instead, he got in trouble for many of them. One of the women Bertie slept with was none other than Lady Randolph Spencer Churchill, a wealthy American girl and future mother of Winston Churchill. When her husband, Lord Randolph, caught wind of the affair, he tried to blackmail Bertie. The playboy prince was so angry he challenged Lord Randolph to a duel, but he had either genuinely or convincingly forgotten that his father had outlawed dueling, so the showdown never took place. The embittered Bertie resorted to banning Randolph and Jenny from society, which again may have been his plan all along. It is virtually impossible for even a skilled professional to psychoanalyze someone who died over 100 years ago, but it was pretty clear that Bertie had a lot of issues with his mother, and to be fair, much of the world had these issues with Queen Victoria. Mother and son never quite got along. Victoria blamed Bertie for Albert's death, and she continued to mourn her husband for the rest of her life. According to Catherine Arnold, author of Edward VII, Prince of Wales and the women he loved, all the women Bertie pursued were the complete opposite of his rigid, mournful mother. They were warm, generous and lively, nothing like the woman who spent most of her life grieving for her husband. However, Victoria never really liked Bertie, even before Albert's death. After finding out his first affair, she wrote, "Oh, that boy. I never can or shall look at him again without a shudder." In other words, she probably did not buy him that love chair. Besides his more bedroom-oriented interests, Bertie also had a penchant for just about every other kind of party. He enjoyed drinking, smoking and eating all to excess. He wasn't called Tom Tom for nothing. The future king wasn't ashamed of his exploits either. At his coronation, he dedicated an entire pew in Westminster Abbey to his special ladies. Today, this seems unthinkable, but at the time, well, it was also unthinkable. Edward was seen as a boorish glutton whom no one wanted to rise to power due to the shame he would bring to the crown, and yet there were no other options. He did not get to vote for the king. However, because of his lifelong habit of indulging in married vices, by the time he finally became king of England, he only survived long enough to stay on the throne for 9 years, although it probably felt a lot longer for everyone around him. So what do you think? Which story about King Edward's life was the craziest? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from Memory Lane.